Okay, welcome. Hey, we finally got here. Becky Sampson with Divorcing Strong. I'm so glad that I'm able to join you today. This is my second summit that I've been a part with Angie and this beautiful group, Divorce Support Group for Women. I'm actually really excited about this topic today. So if this is the first time you've ever seen me and you don't know my story, I'm going to try to kind of weave in my story to the reason why I'm in this industry. And you want to make sure that you stay to the very end, because I'm going to share with you the number one way, or the tactic or secret weapon that I used in order to win my case in the court system up against 5 attorneys, and mostly representing myself. So I did not represent myself because I wanted to. I did because I had to. So some of you out there watching may identify with that, where you're kind of thrown into this situation where you're finding yourself wanting to be, or needing to get divorced or getting divorced, and you have no idea where to start, no idea what to do. And that was me. I knew nothing about the court system when in Hawaii, 4 months after getting there. I had actually gone there on my honeymoon with my former husband, and we had been there for an entire month. He decided the very last day of our honeymoon, he ended up getting hired to work there in Hawaii, and he turned to me and he says, "What do you think about moving to Hawaii?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, really?" And I was super excited and also nervous at the same time, because I didn't know, I only knew 2 people on the island. And it took us about 4 or 5 months to get everything in our lives situated. He ended up going over before I did. I stayed back, got the house ready, got a renter in there. And then 3.5 months after he went out there, I moved my whole life out there. Packed up everything, rented our house, thought we'd stay for 2 to 5 years. And 4 months into living in Hawaii, my husband came to me at the time and said to me, "Becky, I need you to sign these tax tax forms." And I knew they were fraudulent. And I told him, I said, "I don't do this kind of stuff. Like, this is not me." And 10 minutes later, he turned to me and said, "Becky, we need to get divorced, and we need to get divorced fast." And I was like, "Are you serious?" I had started a TV show at that point when I'd gone to Hawaii, because I'm all about wanting to make connections and things like that. And I was just ready to start school and get my degree in peace building, believe it or not, and mediation. And I was devastated. And the very next day, I sat him down. We used to live on the beach, and out on the deck of our beach apartment, we had a table, and I took him out to the table and I said, "Hey, can we just talk for a minute? Like, can you really tell me, what is it that you really don't like about me?" And he started kind of going and naming some things, and I said, "Whoa, hold on 1 second. Okay. Let me go get my notebook." So anybody that knows me, I don't go anywhere without a little notebook and write notes. And so I went and got my notebook, came back, and I said, "Okay, what are the things that you're worried about or concerned about with me, or that you don't like about me?" And he's like, "Oh, write this one down." And I'm like, "Okay, what else?" He goes, "Write that down." I'm like, "Okay, what else?" And I just kept going and going and going until one moment he turned to me, looked me in the eye, and he said the best thing he could have ever said to me, which is, "Becky, I'm having a really hard time seeing the value that you bring to my life." Well, obviously, that kind of took me back. But was my response. As I said, here's the good news. The good news is I know the value that I bring to your life. Whether or not you choose to see it or not is none of my business. So 7 months later, needless to say, 7 months later, I served him divorce papers on the way off the island on April 1st, 2020, when the world was shutting down in COVID. Now, I didn't mean to serve him papers on April Fool's Day. It just happened to be that day, because we had to get him off the island, or else he wasn't going to make it off. They were going to shut the airport. But that started a journey. I knew nothing about the legal system. I didn't know what my rights were. He left me with very little money and refused to send me anything more to help provide, and it was a very expensive place, as you can imagine, to live. And so I want to share with you in these brief moments that I have, I want to share with you exactly the things that I would do for you to know your rights, because I went from not knowing anything to winning my case up against 5 attorneys, mostly representing myself up against those attorneys, and I won a fair and equitable division. So this is the reason why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because people just don't know. You don't go to school to know how to get divorced. And I want to empower you so that you have the confidence that you need in order to fight for whatever you want. And I don't really like the word fight, but advocate for yourself. Okay, because let me just tell you, the court system is not going to give you anything that you don't ask for. And you typically don't ask for it because you don't know you're entitled to it. Whether you're male or female, and I know most of the people here in this group, 99% of you are female. But also one of the reasons why I'm in this profession is because my now sweet husband, I'm married for the 3rd time and last, and he's amazing, is really encouraged me to help people, because he, after 27 and a half years, was left with 21 cents in the bank. So he's a huge supporter in me helping people. So I just want you to get a piece of paper and a pen and write this down, or you can come back to this video. This QR code, whoops, wrong place. This QR code is going to get you a freebie that's going to build your confidence in dealing with the legal system and your rights, whether you go to court or not. I really highly recommend that you don't go to court. That gets very expensive. Just take it from me. There's other possible ways, but I want to be able to share with you some very, very key things. Okay, number 1, every single state, if you're finding yourself in the situation where you need to find free resources because you don't have a lot of resources financially, or you've maybe raised the kids and now you're like, what the heck, what do I do? Find your legal aid in every single state. Go to Google, look up legal aid, and you can apply to work with an attorney. They are very, very busy, so just be aware of that. But you can reach out to them. You can ask questions to these people that are on there, and they usually have attorneys that will help you through the process, or in some cases, they'll actually take your case. Also, along with legal aid, there is a group where all they do is they go out and look at divorce attorneys that are willing to do pro bono work. So pro bono means that you don't have to pay them. I just actually had a conversation with an attorney out of California that I'm going to be doing some subpoenas for, because I have a company called Only Subpoenas, and he's doing it not pro se. He's doing it pro bono, meaning he's not charging his client. It's just part of his practice is that he spends some of his time doing pro bono work. And I said, that's fine. I will do the pro bono as well. I'll help you with this lady, because her circumstance, it's like gone on for years and years. So they have resources to pro bono attorneys. Now they are far and, they're difficult to find sometimes, but I want you to know that resource is there. The other thing, now this came to the end of my divorce, because I just got divorced, 2 years ago, maybe? I've been remarried for about 1.5 years, been divorced for almost 3 years. ChatGPT, okay, kind of a funny thing, but I didn't have it at the beginning of my case, but towards the end of it, it became invaluable for me to do the research. Now, if you're going to use ChatGPT, make sure that you ask ChatGPT if they're giving you any kind of okay, this is how it works, and that step by step, or how do you do this, or how do you do that, then ask for the actual code. So what is whatever state you're in, there's always codes and regulations in order for them, that the government, or the law is bound by. Now, I will say, I am not an attorney. I don't play an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just sharing with you what worked for me. So on the tail end of my case, after 3.5 years, 21 subpoenas, 21 hearings, obviously we settled the day of trial, and he settled for a certain amount. However, just because they settle for a certain amount doesn't mean they're going to pay. So it took me another 1.5 years to enforce that settlement. And first I had to, for me, this is just me, not legal advice, I'm just saying, but when there was a settlement and he didn't pay, I then went and did a motion to compel, until the judge finally just signed off and gave me a judgment for the amount of the settlement. And then I took that judgment and had to figure out how to enforce that judgment, which I did. I put a lien on his house, foreclosed on the house, ended up with the house, and then he ended up paying me. So now I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, okay? I'm just saying that for me, ChatGPT was very instrumental in helping me research all of that out. The other thing is that every community also has a law library. And that is where I actually, I could not find an attorney in the latter part of my court case to understand what I was doing with the foreclosure and things like that. Let alone, I also still didn't have the money in order to retain one, even though my attorney that I got the courts, my ex-husband had to pay for, wanted to pay my retainer. But I knew that if I got an attorney, I still didn't have the money to pay keep that retainer going. So I did end up doing a lot of research on my own. So I ended up going to a law library, and this one guy directed me to an area where they write books for the attorneys. And I found in there some information that, sorry, they're texting me during the whole thing. And I found some information in there from a guy who wrote this book. I took a picture. I literally called the author who wrote the book, that attorney. He's a huge attorney here. I explained to him my situation, and that attorney ended up donating about 6 to 7 hours worth of time over the next couple weeks to work with me and to guide me and to say, hey, Becky, you need to do this, you need to do this, this is okay, this is not okay. So just know that there are attorneys out there, if you go about the right way, that will help, and it takes a little bit of elbow work to find them. But I was incredibly grateful for that. Now, calling attorneys, if you're needing legal advice and you have very little money, like I did, there are attorneys that do free consultations. Now, here's my advice for that. Make sure that you have all your questions written down. Very specific, because attorneys, I will tell you, might feel sometimes when you're calling them that they're short, they don't want to hear your story, they just get to the point. They're very, very busy people. And if you don't have things written down and you're just babbling all over the place, you're not going to get the answers that you need, okay? And you also will end up not getting a feel for who they are as an attorney if eventually you need to retain an attorney. So every attorney requires typically a retainer. A retainer means that you pay me $3,000, $5,000, and they're listening into your case when you're talking to them on that free evaluation or free consultation. They're listening to how complicated your case is, and then they will tell you, say, hey, here's how much my retainer is going to be. And sometimes it'll be $1,000 because they don't think, hey, this is pretty simple. Or they'll do $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is. And a retainer is that you prepay for their time, and then as they work, they send you an itemized a bill of their time, showing that they're working against that retainer. And when it gets low, then it goes back up. You have to repay for the retainer. Those can go very, very quickly. So please be careful. I remember the first attorney that I met, before I even started, I didn't know anything. I went and met with them, and I was so raw that I went to him and spent, I think, an hour and a half in his office. He hardly even said a word. I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, and then he sent me a bill for $365. Or I think it was like $3 I can't remember, but I don't remember. I didn't even have the money at that time. So I never, ever, ever did that again. And there are attorneys that require a $100 retain or $100 consultation. I kind of avoided those because I didn't have the money to do it. And at the same time, make sure that if you're going to call for those consultations, that you have an Excel spreadsheet like I did, And I just wrote their names, their number, contact information, some notes when I talked to them, how I felt when I talked to them. And like I always say, don't marry the first divorce attorney that you meet, because it's like dating. It's like dating and marrying the first person you meet. You've got to vet attorneys. And I can't even tell you how many people have come to me and said, Becky, I just found the first attorney and hired him, and then it's a mess. It is the worst thing for you to be, spent $5,000, $10,000 on an attorney to realize that they're not the right fit. They're not advocating for you, or you guys don't get along. So make sure that you vet the divorce attorney, because it's so important because they're working for you. And that's going to be, actually, I'm working on a book right now called Divorcing Strong, with my Strong method. And one of the things is that I really want to work on in writing in this book is how to hire an attorney, how to get an attorney to work for you, and how to work with an attorney. Because attorneys can be difficult, and they can also be amazing. I ended up with an amazing attorney, but I also got to know how to work with him. And I was constantly thanking him for the time that he took on my case and for how much he cared about it, and because I knew that I needed him on my side. And so that's a whole nother thing. But study the law in your state. Every state is different, and that's called jurisdiction. In your jurisdiction, understand the terminology. So this is where this QR code is coming from. So if you go here, I have compiled 100 divorce terms. I believe, and I know, the more educated you are on these terms when people say things, the better you're going to be, and the more confident you're going to be as you're going into court or talking to an attorney. I can't tell you how many times when I was talking to attorneys, I was using their language, and they were like super impressed, even though my nickname now is Becky Brockovich. But you want to impress these attorneys. You want them to be able to speak to you on the same level. And in order to do that, you got to educate yourself. Just this download alone, if you download it and go through it and literally go line by line, and if there's anything that you want to know more about, take it to ChatGPT. Say, can you please explain this in layman's term and be a legal professional and explain to me what this means and what I can do with this term, like motions. If I were going to, one of the things that I learned very quickly is I didn't know how to get in front of the judge. So if there was a court order, how do and my former husband wasn't complying to the court order, how do I enforce it? I enforce it with a motion to whatever. So research about the motions. Again, there's a list of them. I'm going to actually be compiling them that you can use for whether you have an attorney so you understand it, or if you're going on your own, you need to understand what that is. Okay, where am I? Time. Okay, great. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about the legal system, because if you don't understand it, it can wreck you. Okay, it's a broken system. It is a system that is not perfect. When you go to court, one of the things, because I had so many subpoenas, 21 subpoenas, and a lot of my case was done on WebEx, and a lot of, since COVID, a lot of people are continuing to do WebEx, which there's some advantages and disadvantages to that. Let me tell you what the advantages were for me. It's quite intimidating to have to drive all the way down, go into the courtroom, feel nervous because you've got all these people that understand the court system. The judge is kind of scary sometimes. The other attorney can be scary. Seeing your former or your soon-to-be ex can be scary. For me, on the day that I went to court, if you are in the court situation, I literally told everybody around me, do not call me in the morning. I've got a court hearing today. I need to do a lot of self-care. I need to ground myself, because one of the things that's really going to wreck you in the court system is getting so emotionally charged. And it's really easy, especially if you have a high conflict relationship, to get triggered. And courts can see that. They don't care about your story in the sense like he hurt me, or he had an affair, or he left me, or he was mean to me, or he, whatever he ended up doing. The courts do not want to hear that. You will weaken your case. You want to go in with facts. You want to document everything. Early on in my divorce case, I came across some resources and some people, if you just Google, for me, narcissistic behavior, right? And you divorcing someone that has those tendencies, you want to understand them. So you want to know how to negotiate with them. You want to know how to present evidence, how to interview. I mean, one of my hearings was interviewing my former spouse for 2 hours. I didn't do it for the whole 2 hours, but that was an excruciatingly difficult hearing for me to have to face on, be face to face with him. Luckily, I think it was through a Zoom at that point. But self-care, if you're in the court system, self-care is vital. If you have an attorney, it's a little bit easier because they're speaking for you. And at the same time, when you get an attorney, you kind of lose your voice because they're speaking for you. You can't speak unless the judge asks you a question, and then you can speak up. So you also need to know that judges have bad days too. So when you're preparing yourself for court, if that's part of your case, my mindset is go with no expectations and celebrate the wins. Because sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, sometimes you get the things you want to, sometimes you don't. But for me, before I went to a hearing, I was texting people like crazy going, okay, I'm about to go into the hearing. My prayer warriors, get your prayers going, because I need as much help as possible just to be present and to stay in a loving manner in order to come from a powerful place. So the last thing I'm going to bring up to your attention is my secret weapon. There's two, actually. I'm going to give you a bonus. Is that okay? Because I was going through getting my degree in conflict resolution, in mediation and peace building, it was hard sometimes to keep my heart soft. But the day that I dropped my former husband off at the airport, right before he was to be served, my prayer to God was, please keep my heart soft. Keep it soft towards him and towards other men. Because I knew if I allowed myself to go bitter, and I had no idea at that point what I was going to have to face through the court system. If I was going to get bitter, then I would harden my heart towards other opportunities if I ever were to get married again, which I didn't think I would. And so every time I had an interaction, and I had bad days, it's like any other, it's a process of grief. But I would tell myself, I love you, I care about you. When I'd see him in court or on Zoom, I would just send love to him. Now, the other thing that I did, which seems a little counterintuitive and counteractive from that, staying in a soft space, was subpoenas. I won my case. I know for a fact. I spent 8 months in discovery asking him for everything that I needed so that we could have a fair and equitable division. And those 8 months, I'd ask and then he'd give me a little bit. I'd ask and then he'd give me a little bit. He didn't give me everything. And when I finally figured out how to do a subpoena, because he subpoenaed me, and I was working with a legal aid attorney, and he said, there you go, Becky. There's your template. Go at it. And I did. And I ended up subpoenaing him 21 times. Now, I don't recommend people subpoena if it is not to the point where you've already asked for the information and he hasn't delivered it. Or if he's trying to hide things and he's not getting it to you. It is so important that for you to understand one of your rights and one of your most important rights is that if you have done all of that due diligence and you still are not getting the information, you can subpoena. If you're if you're representing yourself, that's how I was. I did all my subpoenas when I was representing myself. And when I turned my case over to the attorney that I had for a while, he was shocked. He's like, wow. I mean, I turned all over the paperwork and I said, look, and when it came to the day of settlement, I know for a fact that because all the information and all the financials at that point were on the table, that created leverage for me to get a decent, equitable division of assets. So if you're thinking about subpoenas, so I own a company called Only Subpoenas. Now, however, I do them for attorneys. So you have an attorney, then you can contact me and I can do them for them. Because sometimes attorneys don't want to do them because they're a little complicated, but I'm like, that's why I do them. So if you want me to do them for your attorney or direct you to services or resources, if you don't have an attorney, please just reach out to me, beckysampson.com, or you can download the free terms and I can get back with you on that. But I just want to thank you guys, and I want to give you hope as I finish this up, is if I knew today, back then, if I knew what I knew today, I would have not worried as much about the pain and the anguish that I was going through. But I know the pain and I know how hard it is to keep going. And I just kept telling myself, just for today, what do I need to do to get myself just one step further to where I need to get? And I really believe that you can become better, not bitter. So thank you so much for watching today. If you need any support, please feel free to reach out. There are so many great resources in this group, and we're here to serve, and we're mainly here to serve because we've been through it, we know it, and we're on the other side saying, hey, you can make it. We know you can. There's a whole beautiful life on the other side of divorce, and my life is a testament to that because I now am living with the love of my life, and I know you can do it. So stay strong. Thanks you guys for checking in. We'll talk to you soon.